Hello students. Today we are going to discuss chapter 3 of your book Moments. That is Iswaran the Storyteller, written by R.K. Lakshman. Rasipuram Krishna Swami Iyer Lakshman was an Indian cartoonist, illustrator and humorist. In addition to being a cartoonist, he was also a writer and had published numerous short stories, essays and travel articles. He was awarded the Padam Vibhushan, India's second highest civilian honor, in 2005. Let us see what is there in the story Iswaran the Storyteller. This story was narrated to Ganesh by a young man called Mahendra. Mahendra worked as a junior supervisor in a company which used to hire people as supervisors at their various construction sites such as factories, bridges, dams, etc. Mahendra's job was to keep an eye on the activities going on at the work site. The company would often tell him where to go, and so his work involved a lot of travel and movement from one place to another. Mahendra was a bachelor and so his needs were not many. He could adjust to all kinds of work conditions. Sometimes he had to live in an ill-equipped circuit house and sometimes in makeshift canvas tent. In all these, there was one person who was his asset, that was his cook Iswaran. Iswaran was very fond of Mahendra and so he happily went with him wherever he was posted and never complained. He cooked food for Mahendra, washed his clothes, chatted with him the whole night. He had an amazing quality of telling endless stories and anecdotes. Iswaran was also a good cook with his cooking skills. He could cook some of the tastiest dishes and produce ingredients from nowhere. Even in the remote place where one could not see a shop for miles on end, he could turn out some amazing food within an hour of landing at the new place. Mahendra used to leave for work after breakfast and carry his food for the day with him. After he left for work, Iswaran's routine consisted of cleaning his shed, washing the clothes and having a leisurely bath with lots of water. He would have his lunch and then read for some time before taking an afternoon nap. The books he liked to read were Tamil thrillers running into hundreds of pages. He would be enthralled by the description they gave of each story. Iswaran's own descriptions were an effect of Tamil stories he read. Once he narrated a story about a tusker and how they generally behave when they go mad. The tusker in the story had escaped from a jungle and started destroying everything that came his way. Finally, it reached Iswaran's school where the boys were playing football. As soon as they saw a wild elephant, everyone ran to their classrooms. The tusker pulled down the football goal post and volleyball net while everyone, the boys, teachers, and even their neighbors, looked on helplessly. When Iswaran saw that no one was doing anything about the animal, he grabbed a cane from teacher's hand and faced the mad tusker boldly. He hit the tusker on his toenail so hard that the animal stood stunned, then shivered and collapsed. Iswaran knew at what point of the story he could call a break so that the listeners became impatient to know what happened next. Mahendra loved listening to Iswaran's stories. In this way, the narrator says, not a day passed when Iswaran did not tell a story which was always packed with adventure, horror, and suspense. Mahendra admitted that whether the story was credible or not, he always enjoyed listening to him because of the way he narrated it. Iswaran was entertaining in his own way, and because of him, Mahendra did not miss having a TV in his room. One morning, Mahendra was having his breakfast. Iswaran asked if he could make something special for dinner that night. He said that it was an auspicious day. Iswaran then said that according to the custom, some delicacies must be made to feed the spirits of the ancestors. That night, Mahendra enjoyed a delicious dinner and praised Iswaran for his cooking. He seemed very pleased but quite expectedly started talking about ghosts and the supernatural powers. Iswaran started off by telling him that the present factory area which they were occupying now was once a burial ground. Iswaran authenticated the story by saying that he had known about it since he had seen a skull laying on the path on the very first day. And now he said he came across many skulls. He also told Mahendra about seeing ghosts at night. Iswaran said he was not the kind of the scared of ghost, but one of them troubled him. That was a ghost of a woman which appears to him on a full moon nights. According to him, it was an ugly creature with matted hair and shriveled face. It looks like a skeleton holding a fetus in its arms. Fetus, dear students, unborn baby more than 8 weeks after conception, right? So he saw one ghost having fetus in its arms. When Mahendra heard this account of ghosts, he shivered and reacted rather sharply, telling Iswaran that he must be crazy to talk like that. There are no ghosts or spirits. Mahendra told him that it was just his imagination and asked him to get his digestive system as well as head examined because he was talking nonsense. After this, Mahendra left the room to go off to sleep. He thought his reaction would make Iswaran sulk for a couple of days, but to his surprise, he saw that the cook was as cheerful and talkative as ever. But Mahendra noticed that from that day onwards, there was a certain change in him. He would go to sleep with the feeling of uneasiness. Before going off to sleep, Mahendra would peep out into the darkness from the window to see that there were no moving figures or spirits in the darkness. And whenever he looked out, except for twinkling lights of the factory miles away, he could only see darkness all around. Mahendra had always liked to see milky white landscape on full moon nights, but after hearing Iswaran's story of a female ghost, he avoided looking out of the window on such nights. One night, Mahendra heard a low sound of moaning outside the window. At first, he thought it was of a cat, but the sound was not like to be of that cat. Mahendra resisted the curiosity to look out. He was scared that he might see something that would frighten him. But the sound became louder and lesser than that of a cat. He could not resist any more. Mahendra peeped out of the window in a white light of the moonlight. He noticed not far away a dark cloudy form holding a bundle. He started sweating and fell back on his pillow panting. As he came to his senses, Mahendra started reasoning with himself and finally concluded that this must be a figment of his imagination, some kind of a trick played by his own subconscious mind. By morning, Mahendra was fresh again. He took a bath and came out to have breakfast. By then, the horror of the last night had faded. Iswaran greeted him at the door with his usual packet of lunch and his bag, and then Iswaran grinned and reminded him about the story of a female ghost with the fetus and how he had got angry with him. And now Iswaran knew Mahendra too had seen it because Iswaran also had heard a sound last night and came out to see from where it was coming. He said that the sound came from Mahendra's room. On hearing this, Mahendra was once again cold with fright. He did not wait for Iswaran to complete his sentence but hurried away to the office and handed over his papers of resignation. Mahendra had decided to leave the haunted place and the very next day. So, dear students, nobody knows who was the ghost. Was it Iswaran's or Mahindra's own imagination? So, that's all about the story Iswaran the storyteller. Now let us discuss theme of this story. A good story becomes interesting only when the narrator twists and turns the action to make the narrative surprising yet plausible. As in the story, Iswaran telling the story in a graphic and dramatic manner. Next is, nobody is free from fear. If fear lies in one's heart, one should try to know the proper cause of fear. The people take wrong decisions under influence of fear and put their lives in problems. As in the story, Mahindra's decision to leave the place. Apart from this, the narrator has definitely given a message to the readers, that is, never take any decision under the influence of fear, because there are chances of taking wrong decisions in such circumstances. And always be bold enough to take right decision in all situations. So, it's all about the story Iswaran the storyteller. I hope you find this session fruitful and easy to understand. Thank you.